In late 1991, I was the proud owner of a brand new Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo's 16-bit console. I had only had my NES for less than a year before I upgraded to the Super Nintendo. Had a lot of fun with my NES. It was great checking out all those games for myself after playing NES games at friends' houses for so many years. But getting in so early on the Super Nintendo and its early games, I thought was really, really cool. Games like Super Mario World, which is so well regarded even to this day. F-Zero, which is one of my favorite racing games of all time, where I used to gather over at a friend's house and a bunch of us used to try and beat each other's lap times. Games like Final Fantasy II, or Final Fantasy IV, if you will. The first Final Fantasy game I ever played, the first Final Fantasy game I ever beat. Really, it's the only one that I've ever beaten, and remains one of my favorite games of all time. ActRaiser, what a soundtrack in that game. What great visuals in that game. What fun to play. So much variance between playing the simulation aspects and building your own town or city, and then going through and taking down evil. It's a lot of fun to play. But in late 1991, this game came out. This right here is Castlevania 4, or Super Castlevania 4, if you will. That is the first Castlevania game that I ever bought for myself. Now, I had played Castlevania before. Well, I didn't play it, but I had been with someone who had played Castlevania before, and not the first game. It was the second game. It was Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. That game, I was helping a buddy out in high school as he was trying to get through the game. And I would sit with him a couple of afternoons with a copy of Nintendo Power, and I would read to him what was in there so that I could help him get through the game. I didn't play the game myself. I was very much the co-pilot. I was the eyes and ears, and if I noticed anything or if I saw anything Nintendo Power that would help him, I would speak up. But I really didn't play the game. So Castlevania 4 was my first entry. And I loved Castlevania 4. I play it once every year. Right around this time, I'm going to be a little bit late this year because I have a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but it is such a great game. The setting is awesome. I'm still blown away by some of the Mode 7 stuff, especially the rotating rooms. The music is fantastic. One of the cool things about the Super Nintendo is it's one of the first systems that I was able to hook up to a stereo. So I had it hooked up to my stereo, and I would use the tape recorder within the stereo to record the music from the game and listen to it in my car. That was one game. ActRaiser was another. Final Fantasy II, F-Zero, even Batman Returns when that game came out. I just recorded as much music as I could to listen to in my car. So while a lot of other people were listening to a lot of other different kinds of music, if I had my windows down, you would hear video game music coming out of my car well before it was really cool to listen to video game music. As the years went on after that, and I did have my NES, I did wind up getting the original Castlevania, which is where everything started, of course. And then, of course, a game that people hold in very high regard, a game that I have not played very much, and I really do need to make time playing it, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. It's the game that Bloodstained Curse of the Moon kind of builds itself around, at least in terms of the general idea. It's a game that I also have for both my Switch and my PS4, and I just have not gotten around to playing. But I bought it because it's kind of Castlevania-ish-y, and I thought that I should own it. I just need to make time to get back around and try it. When we're talking about great Castlevania games, this one is at the top of my list. It is very close to Super Castlevania 4 in terms of my favorite of all time, but this one takes the cake just by a little bit. We're talking, of course, about Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is the greatest hits version here. My original copy of the game, I foolishly sold off after I beat it back in like 1998 or whatever it was, when I needed some extra cash for games that were coming out. And that was stupid of me because the game never really lost value, so it was very expensive to replace. Of course, now you can get it digitally. I have it on my Xbox One via the Xbox 360. I also am getting it for the PS4. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping to stream it on the PS4. I think it's next week. the week of Halloween, I believe it comes out, and I'm hoping to stream that a little bit. Symphony of the Night is just fantastic. That Metroidvania style that you hear a lot about. This game and Super Metroid are the two that really use that style to great effect first. And while I'm not a big fan of Super Metroid, which I know kind of pisses people off a little bit, but this game, yeah, I can replay this a lot, and it's a lot of fun to walk back through, to remember certain areas of the castle. The music in this game is absolutely phenomenal. For Christmas, and I believe it was 2000, I actually got the soundtrack to this game imported and given to me as a Christmas gift. That's how much I love this game. It is great. It is still very much worth replaying today, no matter what console or platform you play it on. But these are all 2D games, right? And as we're in 1997 when Symphony of the Night came out and moving forward, we were moving away from 2D. We were starting to get into 3 dimensions in terms of graphics. The first game to break that 3D barrier was a game that really didn't rub people the right way who were fans of the series, at least for the most part. Of course, I'm talking about Castlevania for the N64. I'm kind of with them. I do own this game. I do try to play it from time to time. The platforming always tends to throw me off. The game is a very difficult playthrough. The music is okay, as it almost always is in any Castlevania game, save for maybe Harmony of Dissonance for the Game Boy Advance, but that's very rare for a soundtrack not to be good in these games. But this game just didn't do 3D justice, and we were kind of left wondering after this came out, and then Legacy of Darkness, which is like the director's cut of this game, what will we do in terms of 3D games for the Castlevania series? Were we just destined to play these in 2D for the rest of time? The answer to that question is no, and the topic of this very special episode of Unsealed, because today, October 21st, as I am recording this, it's a little after 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Today marks the 15th anniversary of the American release of this game that I'm about to open. It is freshly sealed, has not been opened, and is 15 years old, and I'm very, very, very excited to open this with you today on camera. I am talking about Castlevania Lament of Innocence for the PlayStation 2. A game that tends to divide fans of the series. Some people just don't like the game. They believe that it is too slowly paced. There are a lot of empty areas in the castle, so it feels that you're wandering pointlessly without any kind of pacing. Other people really like the game, think they like the atmosphere. They think that the game does a really good job of doing the Metroidvania theme, but in 3D instead of 2D. I'm kind of middle of the road. I actually lean a bit more towards liking the game than thinking that it's a disappointment. But that's because I played this game all the way through, and I did beat the game, and I enjoyed playing it. I do confess that when I did play the game and beat it for the first time, I had also picked up the strategy guide, which is long since lost. I've moved around several times since 2003, and I do kind of regret that a little bit. As a matter of fact, when I had found this game on eBay, I'd been looking around for a strategy guide for it, and the pricing was just a little bit high, especially considering what I paid for this guy. This was not a cheap find, but I think it was a very worthwhile find because it is 15 years old, and just like Soul Calibur 2 in the last episode of Unsealed, finding these games that are 15 years old, that are Black Label, that are brand new, to be able to open that on camera and to be able to experience once again the feeling of opening these games brand new, I think is a really cool feeling. So this is from Target, by the way. There's a Target sticker right there. And when we look on the back, it's Dawn of the Hunter. And I just want to read this over for those of you who may not have played this game before. So this game revolves around Leon Belmont, an 11th century nobleman and knight of the clergy, who is about to be wed when his fiancée, Sarah Trantoul, suddenly disappears. Leon embarks on an epic journey to bring her back, unaware that a growing evil looms like a shadow over his quest. The majestic tale of Castlevania and the true origins of the Belmont clan of vampire hunters is about to unfold. When I had heard that this was kind of like a backstory for the Belmont clan, I was sold. I thought that it was a really cool story idea, a prequel of sorts, and I thought that was neat. So Castlevania makes its next generation debut in full 3D. This is true. Unparalleled graphics and gameplay deliver the most enriching Castlevania experience ever created. That's arguable, but I still think the game is pretty good. Developed by the creators of the critically acclaimed Castlevania Symphony of the Night, so Koji Igarashi has his fingerprints all over this, which is fine. Dynamic attack system offers damaging combo attacks, magnificent spell effects, and intense offensive defensive moves. Yeah, this to me is kind of like a Devil May Cry, God of War-ish kind of, not a hack and slash game, but very, very action oriented with a lot of square and triangle combos. It's certainly more in depth than a Dynasty Warriors game would be, but it does feel at least somewhat familiar if you played either God of War or Devil May Cry before. That doesn't make this a bad game, not at all, but the similarity is definitely there. There's also a beautiful orchestral soundtrack and Dolby surround sound. And I am going to pronounce the name wrong, I'm sure, but I don't mean to. Michiru Yamane, who did the Symphony of the Night soundtrack, she composed several soundtracks in the Castlevania series, dating all the way back to Bloodlines for the Genesis. Does a fantastic job here. Between this game and its later sequel called Curse of Darkness, I believe that these are two of Yamane's finer works, honestly. And I could listen to these just on disc without playing the games and be satisfied that way. So, now that we're more than 11 minutes into this video, let's go ahead and open this bad boy. I'm very excited to open this. And yeah, let's do it. So we're going to open this up. There we go. Going to take that off there just like that. Oh, gosh, this is so cool. I remember when this game came out in 2003, right around this time, I had this game reserved at my local GameStop store because it was a new Castlevania game. I was super excited to be able to play it. I didn't know much about it, but it was one of those series that it didn't matter what the game was, I was going to play it because I was such a fan of the series by this point. Let's go ahead. Oh, by the way, yes, we do have the label up top. Castlevania, doesn't say anything else on there. There it is. So let's go ahead and open this up real quick. This is one of my favorite episodes already, just because being able to talk about my own personal history with the Castlevania series is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I have been a fan for now. I mean, it's been 27 years. And I've enjoyed the trip. There are some games that I wish I was better at playing, like Rondo of Blood, for example, which I'm terrible at. But Super Castlevania 4, Symphony of the Night, even this game in Curse of Darkness, which I just started playing through again very recently, I can go back through those when I have time and enjoy myself every time. So let's go ahead and let's open this up. Let's make sure the disc doesn't fall out. There we go. So when we open this up, you get to see the gorgeous artwork. I'm hoping... There we go. The gorgeous artwork on both the disc and the manual. We will take the manual out as we usually do. The manual is 32 pages in length, 31 plus a notes page. It is in full color, which I love. There we go. The game, as I mentioned, it is very action-oriented. However, there is, you can block in the game. There is some magic, some relic use in the game as well. It is fun to play. I think the only issue with the game that I mentioned, that I've already mentioned, is just sometimes the pacing is a little bit slow. You will track or backtrack through certain rooms that there's just nothing going on, especially if they're hallways. And it's hard to remember that back in Symphony of the Night, we did have hallways like that would link certain parts of the castle, which were actually used as CD access hallways, where you walk through there and the disc would have to load for a few seconds while you were walking through that hallway in order to make it a rather seamless trip through Dracula's castle. Interestingly enough, here there isn't a registration card, which is a little bit disappointing. We do have prologue here introducing us to some of our characters. Leon Belmont is mentioned here. Matthias Kronqvist, genius tactician. I always thought the story in this game was just really, really cool. So that is a look at Lament of Innocence, and in general, my experience with the Castlevania series. And what a time to do it just prior to Halloween 2018. And I'm looking forward to playing this some when I do get some time, although I really do want to spend some time with Super Castlevania 4 first. And, of course, Symphony of the Night, and I do hope to stream that not too long after the game comes out on the PS4. As always, thanks very much for checking out this and other episodes of Unsealed. I really do appreciate it. Love to hear about your own Castlevania stories. What's your favorite game in this series? Have you played this one? Or which one have you played most recently? Love to talk to you about it. Love to hear your stories to complement mine. And until the next time, my friends, have a happy Halloween, if I don't do another video before then. And until then, see you later, everybody.